Hi, my name is Gerica, and I am in Western's Higher Education Student Affairs program, and I'm currently in the class of Intervention Strategies for Professionals in Higher Education. And here I'm going to be doing a video, and who I have here with me is.
My name is Kimmy. I attend Lansing Community College, or LCC.
What are you studying?
I'm studying pre-veterinary sciences, so I'm currently getting the last of my science courses needed in order to apply for veterinary school.
All right, great. So, what is one of the issues that you have in school right now?
I would say, being that I work full-time and that I go to school part-time, it's really difficult to find a variety of classes that offer the help. So office hours, or tutoring sessions, or group tutoring sessions, or what they call student intervention sessions, where you work with a TA. It's really difficult to find those when you work a standard 9-to-5 job.
It seems frustrating.
It's very frustrating.
So what kind of classes do you look for? Or what are you looking for? Like, classes are you looking for to study?
Well, currently I'm in organic chemistry and general chemistry too. The other problem that kind of goes along with that is when you do speak to professors about what classes you should take and take together, it doesn't really come up, or they don't really account for students that are taking classes along with working a 40-hour job. So it becomes difficult when you hear absolutely take general chemistry 2 and organic chemistry 2 together without hearing, but don't do that if you work 40 hours plus. So it becomes difficult because it almost feels like it's not considered.
Interesting. So what are some things that you've done, what are some roadblocks that you've run into?
My organic chemistry professor, excuse me, he only has office hours at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have to be to work at 8:30 in the morning, every Monday through Friday. He's very difficult to reach, and he seems to only want to go on his time frame, because he teaches from probably 8 in the morning until about 8 at night. So, he's tired by the end of the day. And it's similar with my chemistry 2 professor. When you take night classes after working all day, you understand exactly how to feel, but it doesn't mean you don't need help.
Exactly. So what have you tried anything to kind of talk to them about it, or use other kind of resources that LCC provides?
I have a supplemental instructor, or a student intervention instructor. He's in my organic chemistry class. Basically what he does is he sits in through our class, and then he offers an hour of tutoring beforehand. He's a super nice guy, and he actually has been staying an hour after class to help anyone who needs help.
Oh.
So he stays for an extra hour when he's not paid for it and doesn't need to be there.
That's
That's
really great.
You're right. Yeah, no, it is. It's just frustrating simply because he's doing it out of the kindness of his heart, rather than, someone who may not be able to do that.
Right. And do you find that as a more helpful tool than going to your professor?
I do, simply because not only is my organic chemistry professor teaching multiple classes and multiple different subjects, he is also our chemistry department head. So he is very, very busy and doesn't oftentimes have time outside of office hours before or after class to be able to meet with us.
So do you find that the tutoring makes up for it, though?
It helps.
It helps, but it doesn't make up for it, right?
It doesn't make up for it because only Dr. Campbell knows what Dr. Campbell wants on an exam.
Right.
We don't get review guides or practice problems or anything like that, so it's really what we learn in lecture we have to remember. And he'll oftentimes say things like, in this organic compound, this is the type of solvent that you want. And if you don't remember what he's looking for, it's really difficult to ask him. So,
have you tried contacting him through email, or even calling him on the phone?
I have contacted him through email. He is a lot easier to reach on the phone. However, email is easier for me, simply because for my job, I can't be on the phone as often. I'm usually working with residents. So if I can type up an email in the morning, and then check around lunchtime or when I get a break, that's usually a lot easier for me in order to email So it does become difficult because I can't check my voicemails all the time and things like that.
Right. Have you told him about this kind of thing, about your job and how you're not able to be on the phone, and that email is easier to explain things and it'll be there on paper?
I have. He is very strict on his policies.
Mm-hmm.
He's very formal on his syllabus. He really, what he writes down on that syllabus is what he goes by. And so he is very adamant that we contact him via phone. Email for him is usually reserved for transporting files like chapter notes, or for setting up a time to talk on the phone.
Okay. All right. So you had also mentioned that because you work 9 to 5 and all these other things, it's hard to get other services as well.
Right.
So what kind of issues have you run into that?
Getting a tutor, it's very hard to get a tutor at Lansing Community College for upper level chemistry in the first place. But just receiving a tutor in my work schedule is really difficult because I would have to meet with them on Friday afternoons after 5 o'clock, or on the weekends, or if they're willing, like my SI is, an hour after class, which goes from either 7:30 to 9, if it was after my Gen Chem 2 class, or an hour after my organic chemistry class. So it becomes really difficult because people want to go home, they're tired. I understand that.
Right.
You work 8 hours a day and then you go to class for 2 hours and you just want to sleep or watch Netflix or, study in the comfort of your own home.
Does LCC offer any different kinds of services where you can go online and you can check everyone's tutors' hours?
Not specific tutors. There's this thing called the Learning Commons, and it's in the first floor of the Arts and Sciences building.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, you can go in there and you can see if there's anyone available, an SI or a tutor, a group tutor, things like that. Sometimes there are free tutoring sessions.
Mm-hmm.
They're oftentimes during the day. None of them are ever after 5 o'clock, unless you have one for your designated class. We have one with Zach that's designated from 5 to 6, because our class starts at 6. And because I get out of work at 5, I can usually only make half an hour of it. And since there's only a couple people in it, because organic chemistry is kind of a weeder class, it's a little bit easier to ask questions, but when it comes time for tests or quizzes, it seems like the entire class shows up, and then it's 7 people begging for one person's attention in a half an hour time span.
Right. Do you find that you're able to learn all the material?
No.
No.
I don't. I feel if I personally had more time, or better advice. I don't want to say better advising because I understand that this is not a typical situation.
Mm-hmm.
But
maybe at the same time, I think for me, in being in higher education, you feel that community college is one of those places that are supposed to offer for a wider variety of ages, is more than a 4-year regular institution.
And that's what I thought too, and I feel as though it's more of a school for students to add more to their schedules, or a school for students to go to get their gen ed requirements taken care of. It's not really, at least Lansing Community College is not really a school for someone like me who works 40 hours and is just trying to get certain classes done. Now granted, my classes are very specific, but at the same time, it's very difficult to find any classes that are after 5 p.m., even during the summer, especially during the summer.
Have you spoken to any administrator at LCC about this kind of issue, or at the registrar's office at LCC?
I haven't. I wouldn't really know who to talk to about that or who to voice my complaint to.
And maybe that's one of those issues that LCC is. One of those things that LCC doesn't actually, offer?
Well, there are people we can speak to. I know that with financial aid, I had a few problems with financial aid, and the actual administrator of the financial aid department contacted me personally and has been working with me personally throughout all of my financial aid needs and has really cleared things up. They really took into account some of the complaints that I had with some of the people that were working there, just, not seeming like they were paying attention and missing files and things like that. So that was personally taken care of, and I'm sure there is someone for advising, but again, they close at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So unless it's through email or unless I can find time to call during my lunch, I don't really have time to go in there. And that's another issue, is that
Right.
the school itself is only open till
Mhm.
6, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock if it's any of the other.
Right, which most administrators
Right.
leave at 5.
Exactly.
Right.
And it would be kind of a waste just to stay open for a select few people. Because like I said, I don't think LCC is really meant for night classes,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
So, have you come up with any different, like, kind of solutions for some of the issues that you run into? I know that you've said things about, like, either you have to change your own schedule or, you know, you're hoping people will be nice. So how did you solve your financial aid solution? How did you solve your financial aid problem?
Well, it was kind of a not great way to do things. I did call, I had several problems with financial aid, either being misinformed about certain ways that it would be arranged, or completely told the wrong thing, not being offered options that I know nothing about. And I ended up asking to speak to a supervisor, and I was put through to one of the supervisors there, and I left a voicemail saying that I was very concerned about my financial aid and how I don't feel like I can really come to the financial aid office or speak to anyone who answers the phone there other than a supervisor, because it almost seems like, people don't have time or don't want to have time, or just, there wasn't a lot of financial advising going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just showing me very small amounts of information. So she ended up taking the reins on that one, contacting me, looking back at all of the calls that I had made through through the phone number that I gave her, and speaking with those people, getting more training. And she actually asked me, she's like, what can we do to make this better?
Well, that's great.
It was really great, and I gave her a couple suggestions, just that I thought, in my specific circumstances could be worked on. And it would be great if there was an option for us to, and by us I mean full-time working students, to be able to talk to someone,
Mm-hmm.
An advisor, or someone that we can say, listen, we work 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. Is there any way we can offer science classes, math classes, not I don't want to say non-academic, but non-general academic classes
Mm-hmm.
on the weekends at a different campus. I don't really think the classes that I'm taking, like organic chemistry, are good to take online,
Mm-hmm.
but just having other viable options.
Right. Does LCC have advisors?
They do. I've only been to one, and it was a pre-veterinary advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt as though when I was talking to her, and she even sort of alluded to the fact that I knew more about the veterinary process than she did. And I'm not saying that I'm smarter than her or anything like that. It's not what I mean. I mean that I've done a lot of research on different veterinary schools and their requirements and what I need in order to apply.
Mm-hmm.
What I was really looking from her was I wanted to set up a schedule that would, help me dot my I's and cross my T's for vet school.
Right.
And I didn't feel as though she really knew how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very specific meeting that I was looking for. And LCC is not a four-year university. They don't typically
Right.
have students like me that are looking for pre-veterinary courses of just science.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that aspect it was really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought about going back
To advising,
to get a little bit more advising, or at least help finding a schedule that works better for you?
I haven't, because I contacted the Michigan State University
Okay.
pre-veterinary advisors. There are specific advisors just for pre-veterinary students. And I explained to them my situation. They were very compassionate, very understanding. They asked me to send over my non-official transcripts from every school that I've been to. They took a look at everything, and they actually told me what classes I needed.
Okay.
They formally told me that I no longer need to take any gen eds because I have a bachelor's.
Right.
Which helped check some boxes for me and left some questions that were, sort of answered but not officially answered.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me an official stamp on those, which was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And they were more prepping me to apply to MSU,
Right.
which is an option. Right.
Right. because that's MSU's veterinary track, and while they take in transfer students,
Right.
it's geared more towards them and not, let's say, Western
Right.
or University of Michigan.
Right. And I at no fault to LCC think that, or I in no way think that LCC is at fault for not being able to advise for med school or vet school or, you know, Cooley Law School or anything like that, because it's just not that type of school.
Right. And so, I mean, going back to kind of some of the issues that you run into, have you thought about not working full-time and switching to becoming a full-time student to complete some of those things?
I have. There's actually a position, my SI, Zach, he was really cool. He actually told me about a position. It's called professional tutor.
Mm-hmm.
Really what it is I would, if I were to take this position or being offered and take this position, I would be teaching remedial mathematics to students who were placed in algebra, but did not score high enough to be placed in algebra, because when you take the assessment test, you have to be placed in algebra
Right.
no matter what. So I'd be teaching Math 106 as a tutor, and I'd be helping students get through their math skills. It actually would give me 12 free credits of tuition for the next
that's good.
semester. Yeah. So, and I would only be allowed to work 28 hours a week, which is basically part-time.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that I had is that the job I have now is a very well-paying job. It's a good job. It has a lot of benefits to it. So I would need something that could kind of compensate in the ways of financial stability.
And would this part-time job satisfy those needs?
With the ability to still access my financial aid loans, it would. I would actually be making a few dollars more an hour. And then on top of that, you still have access to your financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever I would normally use for the semester, I could use for housing, car payments, things like that. So you have that sort of bubble to fall back on.
Right.
And then it would also give me a little bit of, a lot more time, in fact, to
Mhm.
study for certain classes, and I could take more classes.
Right. And so, if you were to get this position, and because you're taking certain classes, do you think that then this would help you with your goal to be on track for vet school? Because I know that you've said that, like, sometimes the advisor doesn't really know, so will LCC be able to help you move to that goal?
In a way, without them really knowing. I mean, the advisors are just not, I don't think, trained for being able to say, here's a checklist of everything you need in order to apply for vet school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, at least the woman that I talked to didn't know that there was an overall application instead of specific. You know, she assumed that I would apply specifically to Colorado State, specifically to the University of Iowa, or Illinois.
Right. I mean, each program is very different.
And while that's true, there is an overall application.
Right.
And without, you know, it's fine, because I did my research, and as I should be doing, and I figured all that out. But I think having the ability to take a full load on top of the ability to work, because being a professional tutor does not guarantee that anyone will come to your tutoring sessions,
Mm-hmm.
especially with remedial mathematics. It really just means that you hope people do, and you try and encourage people to, and if they do, you help them. But if I'm sitting in a room by myself for an hour or two, I mean, that's the time I can use to study. And on top of that, not having to work 40 hours a week, I can really use that time to study and catch up.
Right. All right. And so, I mean, do you have any recommendations for LCC to better serve students who do work full-time? Because there are some students who are just like you in your position. And so what would you recommend to LCC moving forward, because you know what some of the issues could be?
I think a blanket survey that goes along with the surveys that you do on your professors.
Mm-hmm.
So things like, at the bottom of it, maybe saying something like, you know, if you are a student that's working full-time, what are some suggestions you could make? Would you, A, like classes that are offered for different career paths after 5 o'clock? B, is there a time that we need to set up for tutors to be there? C, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
So having options to be able to express our opinions on not just our professors and our classes, but on when our classes are, what we need. And that way they can have someone kind of go through them all and say, okay, we have 10% of our students are full-time workers. What can we do for those 10% of students? Because we're students, just like everybody else.
Right.
We really need the help, and I don't want to say more so than the other students, but we have very limited access to resources.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's all about trying to figure out how to spread all the resources in the right manner.
Correct.
Agreed. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for interviewing with me today.
Not a problem. Anytime.